Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to yet another episode of Right Circle. And today we have someone very special with us. It's a young, spunky writer, Riva, who's going to be talking about her debut novel, which was published by Hachette just recently. A very brave, Riva, that during the pandemic you've come out with your book, but given that your genre is about just reflecting strong women characters, I'm not surprised. She is a graduate from the New York University and has been mentored by Tishani, who happens to be one of my favorite poets. So, yep, small world. She's also been a screenwriter for Anil Kapoor films, which is a very interesting world. You straddle both worlds, and yes, that will probably be one of my questions when we open it up for question answers. And moderating Riva today is yet another spunky. In fact, I've worked with her before, so I know that she's full of beans. It's Anchal Gupta, who's a digital marketing professional with a lot of experience behind her. She obviously specializes in brand management and communication, marketing, strategic planning. She was kind enough to support us through The Last Woman Up in 2019. And believe me, everyone at Siahi loves her. So before I hand over the screen, I can't say the mic, to Riva and Anchal for the evening, I'll just like to acknowledge that Right Circle is sponsored and presented by Sri Cements, and we do it in association with Prabhakitan Foundation, SAS Women, and the Spagia Foundation. Just one house rule before we proceed. I'm going to request each one of you to send your postal addresses within the next 48 hours. And please note the number down very carefully to 8529747745. I'm repeating the number 8529747745 because we'd like to send you a copy of the book. With that, with that, I'm handing over the session to Anchal and Riva to take forward. A very warm welcome, both of you.
Thank you. That was very warm.
Thank you, Meeta. Okay, so we don't have much time, so we'll quickly jump on to asking you a lot of questions, Riva. Hi,
Hi.
everybody who's joined us today. So let's just start with the quintessential question about you yourself and what inspired Arzu. Did you always wanted to be a writer? To write the book? A lot of questions.
Yeah. So yes, I always wanted to be a storyteller. I grew up in a family of storytellers. My mom's a screenwriter. And she's a voracious reader. So I read everything growing up, and there was nothing more I wanted to do than be around stories and words. And I actually went to school to study direction and filmmaking and screenwriting. Um, but the thing is, I went to a school where when you're making films, and especially in student filmmaking, you're restricted, or your imagination is restricted to what you can do on like one set and in 2 shoot days. And I found that I wanted to tell bigger stories, and I especially wanted to tell stories because as a person and as a girl, I turned to literature or to films, basically to fiction for comfort or for knowledge. I read a lot of nonfiction too, but when I feel like I'm not on even keel, I need to delve into a book to understand something better. And as I grew up, I found that nobody in the books looked like me or had my particular context. Um, I really wanted to see Indian girls in literature. And they do exist in literature, but not in a Gen Z or millennial or young way. I devoured Chitra Banerjee, Divakaruni growing up, but I didn't quite find a voice that I needed, that I was looking for. I didn't find someone who would speak to me, who would speak my language, and still be intelligent. I didn't want chick lit that was that was frivolous. I wanted something that understood who I am and spoke to me. And so I created Arzu for girls who want both agency and love. And that's what I intended to do with the book, really. I wanted to create a representative heroine.
Okay. And how long did it take you?
It took me 3 months to write it. I wrote it in a creative writing class with, as Neeta said, Tishani Doshi. It was at the fag end of my undergraduate career. I decided I'm going to take a creative writing, novel writing class. And it was titled A Novel in 21 Weeks. A novel in 14 weeks. And we wrote, and I got feedback from my peers who are very, very talented writers. And of course, Tishani, who's a brilliant writer herself. And it started out as an experiment to see if I could do it. And then I just got very involved in it. And I started threading the characters together and the storylines together. And it became something I really wanted to come into being. And then eventually I finished it after 2 more months of editing it. And then I pitched it.
So you just said that you wanted to represent Gen Z, and Arzu is placed in 90s. I mean, of course, there's the elements there.
I said Gen Z. Sorry, I got you. I'm so sorry.
No.
I guess when I said Gen Z, I really meant the sort of young voice that I grew up with, like a young, not really rebellious, but something teetering on rebellion and audacious. The kind of women that I have had in my life, luckily, as both mentors and family, have been very, very not exactly outspoken, but very vocal women. They haven't shied away much from speaking their mind, and their point of view always is backed by some sort of evidence, some sort of knowledge. It's never futile, or they never speak for the sake of speaking. So it isn't the servile attitude that I feel comes with a lot of novels, and especially romance novels, like Indian romance novels that I read, that have the marriage plot as a backdrop. Because I find that in the marriage plot, the girl is meant to be docile and timid and have all of these qualities that are meant to appeal to men. And it's always sort of written in the same way. And this isn't true for all the books that I've read. But I didn't find a voice that was like a spunky Bridget Jones that spoke her mind, or a Meg Cabot, or something, or like a new age Scarlett O'Hara. Scarlett O'Hara was written by Margaret Mitchell in the 1800s, but her voice was more Gen Z than some of the Indian literature that I had read.
Okay, so but what I would really like you to tell us is the economic development that India was going through back then, and you've placed the story in early 90s. How did you connect with it? I mean, even I wouldn't have that much knowledge about what happened back then. And your book covers a lot of it, a lot of plots, a lot of incidents. So how did you manage to study and research about it? And, what made you do that?
So I'm actually a political science minor. My major was filmmaking, but my minor was political science. And I had the luxury of taking a class with this amazing political science theorist named Kanchan Chandra, who writes exhaustively on the subject. And in her class, I learned about Indian liberalization and what a turning point that was for our economy. And already I was toying with the idea of creating something that explores female independence and female agency. And I wanted to do that through Arzu, and I wanted to call her Arzu because it meant hope. And so these two things really fit together for me, because I just genuinely believe that a lot of your independence and a lot of your personality shaping and your identity comes from your access to economic resources. I think that the country that you grew up in, or rather the context that you grew up in, and especially the economic context that you grew up in, often shapes the person you are. And a lot of women didn't have access to job opportunities or working opportunities pre-91, pre-liberalization, because MNCs hadn't come into India yet. And they hadn't brought their sort of, women join the workforce culture. And at first I was thinking of taking that idea of this girl who then joins an MNC. But then I would miss all the drama of the liberalization actually occurring because it would be after the fact. So I wanted it to be a shift in ideology that through all of my reading, I found the time incredible to read about. Like I lapped up everything that I read about the time because there were so many differing arguments and all of these very dramatic exchanges in parliament about it and budget sessions. If you've read the book, you'll know. There were stalwarts backing it. There were people who thought that it would ruin India or lead us like into like capitalist servility, like it had happened with the British Raj. So it was a very dramatic time, and it was a transition between a closed kind of thinking to a more open kind of thinking. And that's what I wanted to do with Arzu, a girl who goes from a closed mindset, unsure of her own capabilities, to an open mindset. And that's why I wanted the context to shape her.
Yeah, nice. And what about the male character of the book? Tell us something about that.
Okay, so the young male characters, there are three main young male characters. One is Aditya Prabhu, who is your archetype prince, he's the stereotype that every girl is supposed to be waiting for. He's your Prince Charming, and he does charm her, and she thinks her whole life is meant to be about him, and she even plans her days around him. And then she has a rude awakening when he decides to do something else with his life. And I don't want to spoil it for everyone who's going to get the book. But then but a character like that, because he's economically dependent on his parents, he doesn't, even though he loves her, he can't think for himself. So economic dependence and agency is a big theme in the book. And anyone who is dependent on someone else for their income is also dependent on someone else for their choices. They don't get their own person. And Siddhant, who is the foil to him, he's bootstrapped completely. He's from the hinterland. He's built himself up. And because of that, he doesn't have the polish that she's used to or that she's looking for. He's not quite as glamorous. He's rugged and uncouth, and he doesn't know what to say. But soon she comes to see that he has his own attractions and that he is his own person and that she wants to be her own person. And so they become partners or friends. And then there's the third character, Rohit Garg, who is a more docile prince. He's almost like the prince that can't quite own his own title. And with him, she's comfortable because he would never lord over her. But at the same time, because she's growing into her own person, he can't stand the fact that she is. And he can't own his title himself, but he wants her to be dependent on him, and she can't be anymore. And so by the end of the book, she has a choice to make whether she would like to be with something familiar with Rohit or do something completely uncertain.
Nice. So, to the most, I think, outstanding characters for me were Parul Bua and Sara. And I think everybody has a Parul Bua in their lives. So, who's the Parul Bua to your life and who's the Sara?
Well, the Parul Bua is kind of like she's kind of like an amalgamation of all my aunts, and I meant her to be a very loving character, and I really hope she reads that way, because everything that she does to help her niece. She does out of genuine concern for her, and because she's been brought up at a different time and there is like a world where that is the best for us. If she hadn't gone on her journey of sort of awakening and realization and intention, she would be very happy being the wife of somebody. And that is also a fulfilling life. I think being a housewife and nurturing a family is great. So Parul Bua is all of my aunts. Although there are some who are very, they're very, and I think some of them are watching it today, so I really hope I'm not offending anybody. There are some who are very gung-ho about ambition themselves. They think no girl should settle down before she's 25.
I absolutely love Parul Bua. So, I mean, I don't think, I mean, she, like you said, she comes from a very good place. And she did very well. Like, she did very good for her niece. So,
Yeah. And Sarah is actually my best friend in the States, Remy. She's not watching it right now, but I'm going to send her a recording of this. Uh, and the character is completely based on her, like down to the blue eyes that change color with the sky. Um, so she was a very instrumental part of my growth in New York. And so I had to write a character based on.
So you've grown up across the globe. You spent your childhood in various cultures across various countries. Tell us something more about that, and how did that shape you to become who you are today?
I think so. I didn't actually grow up across the globe. I just went all over for college. So I had semesters in different countries. Um, I had a very rooted, otherwise, upbringing in Bombay, but that's why going away was really great because it gave me a little space to become someone else. Um, the wonderful thing about India is that you have a very large family and a very large set of extended family, and then family friends, and then your friends. So you have a very big community. And it's very big, but it's still very intimate. Everybody, and I'm grateful for it because I've tried the other way where you're in a completely individualist, independent culture, and nobody's up in your business. And at least for someone like me, that's incredibly boring. Here, but going away did give me a pocket of space to breathe. I didn't have to, nobody was watching me, so I could form my own opinions. I could figure out what I wanted from the world and what I wanted to learn, and who I was going to be. I could figure out my purpose, and the pressure was kind of taken off a little bit to be any one particular person. So there is, of course, the flip side of that, which when nobody's watching for you, nobody's watching out for you either. And it could go the other way and you could flip over an edge that you don't want to flip over. But I personally really enjoyed it. And I think that I tried to portray that in Arzu too, that sometimes you just need a vantage point from which to see your community and your life and then what you would like to do with it.
Yeah. So one big part of the book is the Debutante Ball, and it's very international. So what made you put that in the book, and how most of the incidents are happening around that in the large part of the book. So what's the fascination with it?
Oh, so I actually went to a very diverse college. I had like 117 nationalities just in my grade. So I'd met and I was friends with all of these different sorts of girls, um, like Jordanians and like Jordanians, Palestinians, Egyptians, French girls. So that like I had a like that community was, especially at the time that I was writing it, maybe it was nostalgia because I was getting ready to leave it. That community was very familiar and intimate to me. And then because I spent a lot of time in Abu Dhabi too, I had the chance to interact with Emiratis and some Sheikhs. And so I was familiar with that world too, and I found it incredibly fascinating and glamorous. And then the idea of a debutante ball or a boarding school was just a foil to see, or rather a device to see if Arzu would succumb to the conditioning that she had been brought up with, like if she would revert and take a step back from growth because it's familiar, or she would realize that there's more to this than just servility, like there's more to life than trying to be perfect for someone else and venture out into the unknown. So that was the reason. And then the debutante ball is just a big fun crescendo to see, to see a girl enjoy, like you can go to the dance without being part of that kind of thinking. That's really the message that I was trying to get across. There's this idea that you have to succumb to clique thinking or clique mentality to enjoy anything. Otherwise you're kind of an alien in society. But that isn't true. You can go out, enjoy the party, dance with a boy, have a ton of fun, and still be whoever you want to be.
With the classes.
I'm sorry?
With the classes.
With the classes, yes.
Okay, so my favorite character from the book is Ajit Agarwal, and reminds me of my dad. Who is he inspired from?
So he's actually inspired by my eldest, Mamu, my mother's eldest brother, who basically raised me. All of my reading and learning comes from him. He still loans me like Agatha Christie's, and there's a tenderness and almost a, a business like understanding in our relationship, which is he never treated me like a girl. He always expected me to learn more, and he always pushed me, but never explicitly. And I remember there was a point where I was growing up where I was I was 13 or 14, and I was just getting interested in boys and makeup and all of these things. And he didn't quite say anything, but I could tell that he was disappointed or he was a little nervous about it. And he gave me this book called How to Be a Genius. And it was filled with all of these math problems and English problems and like foibles about the English language. It was basically engineered to cultivate your curiosity. Um, and that's what it did for me. And I realized that it was a great compliment in a sense. He was telling me that he expects more from me. He was also, it wasn't that he villainized any of that. He was just telling me that I need to refocus myself. And he still does that in some in some ways. He's kind of like, if he sees me going through something that's a bit heart-wrenching, he feels it too. And he won't talk about it. So I got like this strong, silent father character. And I think this is true for a lot of Indian fathers or Indian father figures. They, especially if they have daughters, they tend to, they're also learning. They're straddling a line between learning how to be tender and wanting more. And yeah, I think they're all very afraid at all times. Like they're wondering, how is she going to support herself? Of course I'm going to support her forever, but I hope she finds someone who's nice to her. Why is this boy? So it's all of these fantastic qualities. And I think a lot of them are sort of unsung heroes. They go through so much, especially the sensitive ones. That talk about it much. And I really wanted to portray that. I wanted to create a whole snapshot of that. So Ajit is also my favorite characters.
My father gave me a Hamlet, like a classic Hamlet and Renan Martin when I was 10.
Yeah.
I need to do those exercises. So I
Yeah.
completely know where you come from. And I think Ajit is a very good representation of that. Minded me, like I said, of my father. But when we've come to that, tell us more about your favorite literary pilgrimage.
Oh, so I was actually thinking about this question. I don't know if this is exactly a literary pilgrimage. Of course, Jane Austen, like all of her heroines travel because where they lived, nothing would happen, so they would all have to go to London. But then that would mostly revolve around then attaching a man or some romantic drama, and I really enjoy that. That's also a ton of fun because they always grow along the way and learn something else about life. Um, but I would say one of my favorite literary pilgrimages is it's from Gone with the Wind. It's when Scarlett, I don't know if you're familiar with the plot. Many people are. I really hope they are. Yeah, okay, great. So it's when the taxes are raised on Tara and everything's burning, like Atlanta's burning, and the Yankees are in their house, and they're threatening to take over their property. And she goes to Atlanta one last time, and she's determined to make something of herself, or she's determined to save Tara. And she actually does something heinous. She marries her sister's boyfriend. She manipulates him into marrying her, also that she can make money with him, because she realizes that he's going to buy a steel mill. And she doesn't just marry him for the money. She starts running the steel mill, which at that time was unheard of. So just to imagine this like late 18th century woman in her many corsets and petticoats, and you've seen her as this total glamour girl in the first couple of scenes, suddenly like ordering laborers around, telling them how the steel mill works, trying to figure this entire thing out, not taking no for an answer. I think that's my favorite section of the book.
Nice.
Yeah.
You are quite young. I mean, I've also wanted to write. I think every one of us always, all of us have a dream to write a book. But it's so intimidating to see someone as young as you to write a book, a beautiful book at that, and then the second one's on the way. What are your could you give some tips to first-time writers, people who are aspiring to be you? What would you advise be to them?
I would say read everything and then find out what you like and why you like it, why it speaks to you. Um, and then read more of I know a lot of people say read everything and then just keep reading everything, but I would say figure out what you like and then read more of that stuff, like the writers, the cadence of which writer appeals to you, or the storytelling or the dramatic plotting of the writers that appeal to you. And then start start experimenting with it. The only person judging you really is your own blank page. So just keep at it. And honestly, my biggest advice would be don't get bullied. I think a lot of people bully you out of industry, any industry. I think that's just the nature of business. Like it's competitive, and people would rather see you not finished than finished, especially if it threatens them. So keep at it. Have conviction in what you've written, and yeah, and pitch it, and then keep your conviction in it, unless you get really good feedback from people who you trust. That's one thing that I had that I think really helped me. I had a circle of writers both at college that I really trusted, whose sensibilities and whose command over language and craft I trusted. And getting advice from them was very helpful. And then getting advice from my family was very helpful. So also cultivate a little group of, readers who are just readers, not people who are involved with the business of writing. And see if they like it, because sometimes I think in writing you get it becomes esoteric fairly quick. People forget what the layman wants to read, or what a layman reader wants to read.
So what would you say is the most reassuring aspect of being a writer?
Oh, there's nothing reassuring about it. There's absolutely nothing reassuring about it. I just do it because I really love it. Yeah, because you don't have anything really, like there are no laurels to rest on, not even a published book. You have to keep performing. It's kind of like being a performer or a craftsman or an artist in any industry, I would imagine. Or maybe it's like selling anything in any business. Although if you like in business, if you're a manufacturer, you have like an assembly line set up, and then you just have to keep adapting to market research and creating new products. With the writer, you have to keep doing that too, but I guess you're just like one person doing it. um, there's nothing reassuring about being a writer, but I'm glad to be published. Thank you, Hachette. Thank you for letting people read my book.
Rephrase that. So what keeps you going? What is inspiring? Do you Google yourself and feel good about it? Do you read reviews?
No.
Never.
No, I think I'm sorry to cut you.
No problem.
But the only reason I would Google myself is because I've told, like, an editor told me that a short story was coming out on a certain day and it hasn't come out yet. So I'm Googling myself incessantly, wondering where it is. I don't read any of the interviews I've given or anything that's written about my book, unless it's a review that someone's tagged me in. That's always nice to see. But as a person, I'm always worried about getting complacent. So I don't get that.
So what keeps you going then?
I'm a little bit neurotic. I keep me going. I'm also obsessed with the
I
idea
think
of
I'm also very neurotic in that.
yeah. No, I'm also obsessed with the idea of female agency. Like I genuinely want to be economically independent as soon as possible. And that's hard. So that keeps me going. Like I am trying very hard not to be a hypocrite.
No, okay, works. So let's tell everybody what's next. What's next from you?
Yes, my next book, The Nani Diaries, is finished, and it's being represented by a suitable agency. That's a wonderful agency in Delhi, and it's being pitched right now, and I hope it gets published soon.
Oh, that's nice. So I think we wrap it up here, and we let the audience ask some questions. Meeta?
Okay. I was wondering, Vishaka, do we have any questions coming in? Should I ask the first one?
We have one question from Arjit, and he says that a young writer is like a whiff of fresh air. So a thank you, Riva, is in order.
Oh.
My question is, why would a young person in today's time and age decide to write? This I ask because in a social media defined world, attention spans on the average are that of a mouse. The attention span is as long as it takes to swipe to the next feed. Do you have faith in people of your age taking time out to read a book?
Funny.
Um, well, I am my age and I read, and I know enough people who are also my age who read. Um, and most importantly, I don't think this any of my writing is meant just for people my age. I think it's meant like the way I write. It's meant for readers, people who enjoy stories. If you enjoyed, if you all the heroines that I read about are of the age that my heroine is too. So if you enjoyed, say, Bridget Jones or Meg Cabot again, you would enjoy this book. Or Sophie Kinsella, you might enjoy this book. I hope at least to be coming to that standard of things. But as far as the social media question goes, I think um, the great thing about writing long form fiction is that, and reading long form fiction is that it gets you to catharsis. A post or scrolling through things gives you instant gratification, but catharsis is like the deep purging, right? It's what you, it helps you grow. It allows you to get more insight than just checking out things or flipping through things can give you. So to me, reading has always been a sort of meditation. It's a place of solace and learning and fun. And I always come away from a novel feeling better and refreshed and in some sense new. Um, and I don't think social media can quite do that. I think at least I always come away from it feeling a little bit worse about myself. Uh, so, but they both have their own spaces. I don't think novel writing is going anywhere anytime soon, and I don't think novels are going anywhere anytime soon.
We have another question from Gautam Sen, and he'll be asking the question himself.
Riva, I've been fascinated by how you have formatted your first book, although I have not read it. Fiction is one of the most diverse areas as far as writing goes, because you can put in whatever you wish from wherever you wish. However, there are always characters, as you mentioned, all your aunts to form one character, Parul. And similarly, have you envisioned any of your teachers who contributed to your writing?
I'm sorry, any teachers?
The teachers, for example, have your teachers come into your book in any format?
Um, I suppose a lot of my English teachers have not they aren't represented as characters in my book, but I thought of them while writing it. Especially, I had two English teachers that I have to mention. One is a lady named Lakshmi who really taught me in the 10th grade to pass out and understand Shakespeare, and she loved his work so much that that love sort of spilled over to me. It became something that I absorbed, and I started to love language. And I started to see the sort of little gifts that he left in every verse or in every character dialogue. And then I had a teacher. I was fortunate enough to have a great teacher in high school. Her name was Miss Moshmi Basu. I don't know if she's listening in, but she taught me how to really appreciate dramatic storytelling. That was my first just with Pygmalion and Othello and all these great dramatists and great plays. And I really understood dramaturgy from her, and that actually helped me get into college. So those, they may not be represented in the book, but they were definitely stalwarts behind me. They were pillars that helped write the book.
Great teachers are fine. Everybody writes about great people. What about an awful teacher?
Oh, an awful teacher.
Have you ever thought of using a character of that sort?
That's interesting.
Isn't Madam Viv something of that sort?
I'm sorry.
Isn't Madam Viv something of that sort? I mean, she's
That
hated.
something of that sort. I guess she is what you would call. I wouldn't call her an awful teacher because she's just doing her job. She's just a sort of caricature because of that. I think the worst thing you can do to someone, the best way to villainize someone is just reveal the fact that they have no depth. They automatically become caricatures. You don't really have to do much else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question.
We have another question. And the question is, how does a writer think in words? I'm a visual artist. I know how to think images. Curious to know about words / prose.
Okay. Well, the best way I think is to read a lot. I think that's the way you start, as she said, thinking in words or rather thinking in formed sentences. Because I find that a lot of my articulation is very similar to it's almost like, again, an amalgamation of all the voices of the writers that I like, the ones that speak to me. So read a lot, and just as I'm sure as a visual artist, you devour the work of other visual artists that you really like, and their styles influence yours in a similar way. If you would like to start writing, the styles of other writers will start to influence yours. And I think it was Virginia Woolf who said, "Read 1,000 books and your words will flow like a river." So I'm just going to quote her on this one.
We have another question. How much is plot important these days? Sensibilities have changed. How do you cater to the drabness of romance?
Oh, I wouldn't say romance is drab. That's so sad. Romance can be incredibly fun. I actually write romance for films, so I really enjoy writing it, and I love reading it, and I love seeing it on the screen. I would say plot is still incredibly, at least to me, I write in a very 3-act structure sort of way because my training has been in that way, and all the novels and films that I've loved have always been followed a very classic structure to catharsis. So plot is very important, even if it's a coming of age narrative or it's one protagonist's journey. This book, for example, follows the hero's journey. It's a heroine's journey instead. It's a very conventional journey, but the way you realize it should be your own, and that's what I think makes it fresh and different from others.
We have another question. It's such a pleasure to see a young writer who is so mature in her thoughts and so passionate about her craft. My question is, where do you see yourself in coming 5 to 10 years? Would you stay with this genre or experiment with others? Which other genres do you see yourself comfortable in case you plan to diversify?
I definitely hope to experiment and go. So I wrote the Nani Diaries, which still fits into this genre a little bit. I hope to write children's literature soon, or at least sort of middle school children's literature, or high school. Like, this is still new adult, maybe something younger, because I think 15, 16, 17 are very important, crucial formative years, and they were very important for me. Fiction was very important for me at that point of time, and I would love to write something about a young Indian girl, because I would have loved to read it at that time. It would have really grounded me. And I really want to write fantasy at some point, and perhaps a thriller or a mystery at some other point. So I'm very excited about all the years to come. And I don't really see myself, I don't really think about where I'm going to be 5 or 10 years from now. Hopefully, I'll still be writing.
We have another question. Many of us have been waiting for George Martin's Winds of Winter. Do you believe in writer's block, and have you experienced it?
Yes, but the best advice I got about writer's block was from Tishani, my mentor, which was, she just told me to write through it, so that even if you're writing absolute rubbish, just get to set a word limit. She set a word limit for us. It was 3,000 words every week. and you have to get to that limit, and you can't get up or do anything else or check your phone or any of that till you've gotten to that limit. And even if it's rubbish, you can always edit it, or you'll have the confidence of having written. And that always, once you start writing, I genuinely believe that always sort of opens the floodgates to better writing. So I would say write through it. That at least it works for me. Sorry, have I frozen? Okay.
I think there should be another question.
I think someone's cut out.
Meeta.
There's another question. How does she move from one structure of prose to writing for screen, and what all have you written for screen?
So I'm currently writing my debut film for screen. I haven't written anything that you would have seen for screen yet, unless you watch Shake Chili and Friends, which I wrote a couple of episodes for when I was 19 on Discovery Kids India. So I moved from prose to screenwriting, in that in screenwriting there isn't all of your interiority and your characters are developed kind of in backstory. It doesn't sort of, there is no explaining or reflection done on screen. You don't really see someone get up and talking about their state of mind, which is a luxury that you have in fiction or in prose. You get to really pass out where a character is at and where a different character is at. In screen, all of that exists, but completely it's performed. It's not, that's where your actors come in. They allow you to imagine and their performance allows you to imagine the where the character's at in their life and where they're going and what they're going to do. So that's really the difference, I would think. And of course, prose allows you to play with language in its descriptions too. Screen, not so much. You try to be, at least I try to be as sparse as possible.
There's another question from Arjit. I think, yeah, he's going to ask on his own. Arjit, please ask your question.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
So anybody who has had the patience of sitting through Gone with the Wind is a good person. That's it. Is a good person. Now, having said that, Margaret Mitchell's book, I'm not very sure whether the book is that popular as the film is. The film is, of course, one of the most celebrated pieces in filmmaking ever. It's also very sexist. It's a very dapper, debonair male Red Butler who's talking about the slimmest waist south of the Mississippi, if I remember. So it's also it's set in a period which a lot of us will find difficult to relate to. So, Riva, do you see yourself doing up one of your books, this one, any other, as a film at some point of time? Because that's a medium which also garners eyeballs, it holds attention, it's much talked about again, just as much as a book.
Right. So it's actually being pitched right now. So hopefully something will come of it.
That's fantastic. That's great.
But
Thank you.
again, it's fingers crossed. But just to your point of Gone with the Wind being incredibly sexist, the film, that might be your interpretation of it, but the book is, I would say, it's incredibly feminist. The protagonist, the woman who takes charge of her own destiny when all the men around her fail her. She does everything that she can to keep her family safe and to keep her heritage safe. And actually that line, the 22-inch waist, by the end of the book, she says, well, to hell with everyone, I'm going to eat what I like. And I'm going to eat as much as I like.
My type of girl, right? I like that. But thanks, Atan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arjit.
Are there any more questions from any of the audience members?
I think I just would like to ask one last question.
Yeah, of course. Please go ahead.
I keep wondering, what if you would have written the same book in today's scenario? Would she undergo a lot of things that she probably had to at that point of time because of various societal constituents? But if Arzu was written in present times, how would it be different?
I think she would have never gotten the chance to, unless she maybe put her phone off, it would have been very hard for her to get the chance to be her own person, because you're so connected. I genuinely think this, that unless you have the discipline to really do away with everybody in your old world, it's very hard to create distance these days. So it would have just played out differently.
Yeah.
And then I also think, if not, if she is her character even today, then she would have found something else to empower her if it wasn't the liberalization. I just think the liberalization is an important moment that deserves its due, even in and it has been given its due, but I think that my generation, for example, doesn't know much about it.
Yes.
Because we've been born after the fact, and we really benefit from everything that happened then.
Yeah.
All our like audacious thinking comes from that.
Yeah.
So
Especially for women, right?
yeah.
I think we sorted.
We have one more question.
Okay.
How do you think being a writer has helped you as a person?
Oh, I think it gives you a place to play out different scenarios. So it really it's almost like you're living in different alternate universes, seeing how one choice might lead to a particular repercussion and what that would mean for you. So I guess in a sense it's cool because it allows you to lead many lives and then figure out what would be the best journey for you. And I always come away from a piece of writing feeling like I've grown in some ways. So there's that sense of satisfaction.
Thank you so much, Riva. This was such a fun conversation to listen to. I think Right Circle evenings have become my favorite evenings of the pandemic. There's just so much. It just such a change from our day to day, right? Before I let any of you go, I have one more question for you, Riva. You are writing books and you're writing for screen. If you had to choose one, writing for books or writing for films, which one would you choose and why?
Why do I have?
If at all. Just because.
Oh, like gun to my head? I don't know.
Sort of like.
I don't know. That's very harsh. I want to make movies and I want to realize that the thing with writing for screen, at least right now in my stage of life, is that when I'm writing for screen, I'm writing as a commissioned writer for other people's vision. And that's a lot of fun because the onus is taken off me. It's kind of like a creative experiment, right? Like a challenge is thrown to you, do something with this subject.
Right.
And that's great because I don't have to worry too much. I then just have to worry about how to create a story or a narrative about this particular thing. But writing for myself is, on the flip side, it's great because I get to write whatever I want. I'm not answerable to anyone. And I get time to work on it. So I wouldn't choose.
Fair enough. That was an unfair question, but I mean, I just had to ask. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Riva. Thank you, Achal. That was super fun. Before I let everyone go, just a quick thank you to all our partners for the Right Circle series, Sri Cement, Siahi, PKF, SRS Women, and Spaja Foundation. As Meeta already mentioned, please send us your postal addresses on 85297 47745, and we'll send you a copy of Riva's book.
Yay.
That's all we have for all of you tonight. Until the next Right Circle, where we'll see you again.
I must say that it's a
So,
fun,
yours.
I must say that it's a fun book to read, and if you guys are getting a free copy, just like that, please send me your addresses. I'll ask all my friends to send in.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I hope everyone
It's incredible, and good luck. I hope to stay in touch. It's inspiring to see someone as young, and of course, a woman as young as you, going way beyond, breaking
kind. That's too kind. I'm not.
No, please. So looking forward to hearing of you and seeing you do many great things.
Oh, thank you, Anjal. I hope your book soon.
Yes, we should. And
All right,
thanks,
so
Meeta,
Thank
for giving the opportunity for this fun conversation this evening.
And thank you for
thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. On behalf of Meeta, I'm saying thank you to everyone. Meeta's had to rush. So thank you so much. Thank you guys. Until next time, we'll see you again.
Thank you.
All right, bye.